Hey, aloha gang, Dr. Russ Rosen here. Welcome to Dr. Rosen Interviews the Greats. And we have a very special guest with us here today. That is Dr. Tom Lankering. Dr. Tom, welcome aboard.
Dr. Rush, great to be here. I love being in your frequency and your energy, and I'm excited to spend some time with you here today.
Yes, and you know I feel the same about you. I've been had you on my list to interview you for months now, and one thing or another came up, and we finally get to sit down today. I think you're all in for a real treat, so we're gonna jump right in. So, give me just a quick wrap on how you got into chiropractic. Tell me your
Yeah,
story.
November 1st is 41 years, my 41st anniversary, and I'm more excited and more passionate than ever. And obviously, I've got a fun whole story. I'm not going to get into that, but the bottom line, a lot of people who got into chiropractic, they had injuries, they couldn't walk, they get carried into an office, walked out, and so forth. That's not my story. My story was I had the voice that was so strong inside me that I couldn't ignore it. I had to follow the voice. And I say that because I grew up in New Jersey. My heart was born here in Colorado. You can see the background, the mountains here. That's my backyard, Aspen, Colorado. And when I moved here, and the first day I walked outside, and the voice was like so strong, saying, "This is home. This is it. This is where you're supposed to be. Kick your feet up." And I had driven out here to get hired as a ski instructor, and I did get hired. But my dad was like, "Well, you should have something to fall back on." I was like what? And he says, "Like chiropractic." I was like, "Yeah, whatever that is, fine." So on the way out, I stopped at Palmer College, got interviewed, and they said, "Hey, we've got a quarter starting next week. You want to start next week?" I said, "That's really nice, but I've got to go skiing first." And they said, "Well, you can take the deferment." So okay, fine. So I took the deferment, came out here at Aspen, got hired as a ski instructor, and you would have thought my father thought I was signed by the New York Yankees or something like that. And I got into that. I got into playing piano. I've been playing the piano since I was 4.5. And so I was ski instructing, playing the piano, having an incredible time. Lots of fun. Just, it was great. And I decided, okay, I've got to go back to chiropractic. I got to go to the next level, the next phase of my life. And I went back to Palmer. And the first week I was sitting in class, looked out the window. I still remember it right now. And the voice was so loud, it's like, "You're supposed to be a chiropractor, and you're supposed to be a chiropractor in Aspen." And that voice has driven me even now, 41 years later in practice, or that was what, 45 years ago. And with the things that I'm doing now, that's just still a guiding light. I think we all have that knowing inside of us of what we're doing. And a lot of us in chiropractic, we've been fighting this battle for a long time. And now we're seeing, the fruits of our labor. We're seeing Bobby Kennedy transforming healthcare. And what we used to talk about and being poo-pooed and quacks and everything else is now front page news. And so it's so exciting to be part of that. And even, excuse me, I'll finish up here, but even when COVID came around and they were saying, health is put masks on and 6 feet apart and take a shot and blah, blah, blah. I was like, no, that's not what health is. And I drew the line in the sand and said, now is the time to rise and show people what health is really about. So it's kind of been a rebirthing. And so anyway, quick story. Obviously, I could do a National Geographic series on that, but yeah, fun and it's exciting and I'm passionate and what I've been learning and working with you has really been pretty amazing. So yeah.
Yeah, so the thing that I want you all to hear is this guy's been in practice 41 years and he is more passionate today than ever. I happen to be on the inside because I do one-on-one coaching with Dr. Tom, and he gets done more in an average week than most of us do in a month. This guy is always, it is amazing how much you get done. It's amazing how passionate you are, how excited you are to continue to learn more. And it's one of the things that turns me on the most is to see, guys like you and me, either no hairs or gray hairs that are still passionate, that are still learning and are really leading the way. And so I want everybody listening to this to do a gut check and check where you're at, how many years you've been in practice. where you're at as far as your passion goes and your leadership. And this guy's a big leader in a lot of ways, speaks at seminars, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so what I want to dive into is a little bit about how you presently practice, why you practice the way you do, and then we'll jump into, since we got working together, what's changed and what has changed inside of you that's led to this incredible success that you're having.
Yeah, when I started, it was, like a lot of chiropractors, very structural, doing a lot of MTB. I don't know if you've worked with that technique before, move that bone. It's kind of what my whole technique was about, right? And everybody had to be all plumb straight and square. And then I started realizing, we are what we eat. And so nutrition became a big part. And then I'd be working with people that say, gee, doc, whenever I get stressed, it goes right here. And I was like, what is that about? And so I was incredibly fortunate. I think Dr. Versendahl, Dick Versendahl, doing CRA, was kind of my first venture into outside just that structural aspect. And he was as you well know, an amazing man, doctor, teacher, mentor. And that got me going. And then I got with Dr. Scott Walker with NET, really looking at the emotional release work. And now these days, I mean, man, emotional stress is just off the charts, is no question. And that ties into, your neuroscience of communication. And so I got with that, then I got with Dr. John Brimhall. Been studying with him for about 30 years and him working with a very holistic, his triangle of health and what that was about. So I've been very fortunate to be amongst mentors who are really on the cutting edge. And I think that ties into my 41 years of still being excited and passionate. A lot of times people were asking me, gee, are you retiring? And actually, this past April Fool's, I posted on Facebook that I was retiring. I still get people coming up and going, are you retired? And I was like, oh, I don't think that was a very good thing to do. But anyway, it opens to a conversation to go, that was April Fool's, but I'm more excited, more passionate. I'm doing this and I'm doing that and I'm learning. Whereas a lot of friends now are like retiring and going playing golf and skiing, or which I don't do golf, but ski, bike, but it's like, man, there's so much excitement about waking up in the morning. You go, man, I got some things I know I'm going to focus on learning, and I got other things I don't even know what I'm going to learn about today. So yeah, maybe that's a long version there.
No, no, that's great. It's interesting. It was end of '88. I met Scott Walker, and then 3 months later, I went to a Versendaal seminar. Dawn, his daughter, who's taken over, as you well know, he passed away in 14. Um, she asked me to, and I was honored by this. She said, "Would you do me a favor? I've written a book honoring my father, and and CRA. Would you read it over and give me your notes on it?" And I told her it's so interesting because as I read it, I recognized there's so many things I learned from your dad that I thought I made up. You know how like you learn stuff and you kind of figure it out. Oh, okay, well, I made that up. And there's all kinds of stuff that I teach doctors all the time that I thought I made up. And when I read it through, I was going, wow, I really heard it through your dad. That's the
Yeah.
first time I got that concept. And it really, it opened my mind to different ways. And I'd just like to throw out for those of you listening, um, when I was in practice, anybody who didn't practice the way I practiced, techniques I used, whether I used nutrition or not, or neuro emotional work or, network or whatever it was, if you didn't practice like me, you were ripping people off. If you spent less time per visit than me, you were ripping people off. If you spent more time, you were wasting time because it was clearly what I was doing was best, period. And it changed all the time, right? I grew and evolved through different techniques, etc. And I think I felt that way honestly until I started coaching. And once I started coaching, I started hearing all these people doing all these kinds of different techniques, getting great results. I've been a high volume guy. I've been a real triad of health guy, right? My experience is just throwing this out there is that all techniques are not made equal. They're not. Different ones are really good at correcting curves and correcting spines and showing changes on x-rays, and other ones at getting people to feel better fast, and other ones at, getting to the underlying cause of the problem, and other ones having spiritual connection, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What makes it best is that you find your zone of genius. What makes it best is you find what works best for you and that you get the kinds of results that you want. Dr. Tom is extremely clear on how he practices and why he practices the way he does. Dr. Tom, I know for a fact any of us would be joyous to be able to have as our chiropractor because he's so clear on what he does, and he goes in there and he really gets to the underlying cause of the problem. And again, I'm just bringing this up because as we listen to this we can think, yeah, but he's a mixer, I'm a straight blah blah blah. And I just want to throw it out there that I coach doctors at Atlas only, and I coach docs like Dr. Tom, and all that matters is you find your truth. All that matters is you find your passion in your zone of genius and what you're really great at, like Dr. Tom has. So, talk to me about this. Talk to me about, we've been working together how long now?
So this is October, 6 months?
6 months, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. April, would that put us at April or something? Yeah, somewhere around there.
Okay. So, you've had some pretty big changes pretty fast. Tell me about the changes and, more importantly, what caused them? What shifted inside of you, headspace wise, as well as procedural wise, that's allowing you to have this tremendous success?
Yeah, it was exciting for me because I've always had an expectancy of cracking it open. I've been, looking for, the Holy Grail for a long time. And was doing, comfortable, was doing okay, but was still has always been seeking. And I've been fortunate enough, they talk about, your life is like the five people that you associate with, and that influences your life. And I think it's all about frequency and energy. Doug Grant, who I work with Optimal Health Systems, is a great mentor and talks about that. It's interesting because Dr. Russ, when you and I met, I've been working with OHS, Optimal Health Systems, and now I meet you and it's OHC, Optimal Health Coaching. And I'm like, that is not a coincidence. I mean, that's something to come along. And I think that your frequency demonstrated by, and I want to give you kudos and congratulate you and thank you for your award. What were you, Time Man of the Year, or no, top 20 in chiropractic or something like that. So top 20, which really I think validates what you're doing and the people that you're attracting, because I could go into philosophy and this and that, but when you get down to it, it's all energy, energy and frequency. And so resonating at your energy and frequency, I think, has been a huge part. And the calls that you do with the other docs that you work with, I mean, it's just a great community of people that's, on the same line. They're powerful and passionate and excited about what they're, and they're committed. And you create that community. And with your experience and your insights, it's really big. And I think the thing that got me was when we were having our first conversation, still remember it. What was my biggest challenge? And the biggest challenge was getting my patients to get it, right? Get it. What is it, right? And how do they get it? And how do I get them to get it, right? I don't know, I've been searching, but when you came up with this neuroscience of communication to help them to understand how to get it, whatever their it is, not my it. I know what my it is, but their story and putting my story on their story. When that came around, that was a game changer. That right there was a paradigm shift, and the technology and the technique behind it to communicate, because it's really all about communication, whether you're looking at marketing, whether you're looking at educating, the communication and to get people to get that. So I think that that was, the big turnaround. The other aspect that I applied to my practice was to focus on getting the patients to get it. Whereas I thought all this other stuff and NET and Brimhall and this and that, and boy, I can impress them with this, which I still enjoy teaching and learning, but I've learned how to do it more effectively and more succinctly to really laser in and really zero in to help to understand how the patient's going to navigate getting it. And, the path to health and, is it a back or health problem? I mean, those two tools right there are game changing.
Yeah.
So,
And I'll throw this out there. You are, I've mentioned this to you before, you are as good at your rap telling the story of anyone I have ever worked with. You've got your rap down. So many doctors, when we start working together, ask them, okay, so you do, NET, tell me about NET. And they have no way of really explaining it in a way that makes sense. You're amazing at it. You already are amazing at using stories and metaphors. You're so incredibly good at that kind of stuff. You're great. And you and I both have, like, someone asked a question, we hit a play button and we got our rap down. Oftentimes, when I'm talking with someone like yourself or myself for that matter, and I talk to you about the neuroscience of communications, where we got to get our information past the reptilian brain to the neocortex. And then in the limbic system is a new belief system. We have to draw their story out. And instead of trying to teach them our story, which is our rap, we need to simply learn how to apply our story to their story. And it was something I remember the first time when we started dealing with that, I saw you go like this. Got it. It was like,
right.
oh, got it. And oftentimes it's very difficult for me to get doctors to send me live ones that we can listen to together because I know that that's where I can best help you. I can teach you all kinds of stuff of things that I hear that you're not going to hear because you haven't really studied it, and to help you see blind spots. And it was one of the things that I so appreciated, that you were excited to do that. So many people are afraid to do that. You were like, dude, are you kidding? Like, send me that. And then every time you're so into it. And oftentimes I have to be careful in couching it in a way that people can hear it, that I'm not making you wrong, blah, blah, blah. You're like, dude, I don't, I get it. I get I'm not doing that. Like, bring it on. Which,
Yeah.
as soon as we were doing that, like, oftentimes people will grow this much from it, then the next one I listen to, they grow that much. You were like leaps and bounds. You were like, oh, I get this. And you were having massive changes of actually people getting it and signing up for care and staying for care and larger care plans. I think you mentioned that. So how long was it that you 7X'd your practice? How many months? 4 months?
Yeah, for 4 or 5 months or so, maybe six at the most. Well, it was, in February, from February to August. So 6 months, I guess that was. A
Okay.
couple of those months I hadn't been working with you. Like I said, I don't think I started till April. So yeah, we were working at that time frame.
Yeah.
So, and I remember too when I started, because I was like, man, I felt like I was in the toilet. I mean, I remember we had the conversation. I was like, this is this is I don't like this place. I want to get out of this place. And we had that conversation, and that was like boom, and I also think I want to say that over the years I had worked with a lot of consultants, because I have just always been seeking to learn and do better, and the whole mission aspect. And I remember I had one consultant I was working with, and they said, if you do 5% of what we teach you, you will double your practice. So I had one of his assistants, come in and observe me in my office. And I remember her saying, she said, you're doing 95% of what we're telling you to do. And my practice was going down. And I was like, oh man, whereas working with you in just a little bit, 7X'd my practice. And, dealing with neuroscience of communication, their story, my story, path to health, of finding out, your tool of helping people find out where they're at and where they want to go and what that means when they get there. more energy, happier, less pain, quality of life types of things is a game changer. And I remember selling some of the packages, right? I mean, it wasn't where I was even selling them. They were asking, because I was like, well, how long do you think it's going to take? And they're like, well, 6 months or 2 years. And I go, like you say, I think that that's reasonable. Here's what I can do. I can offer you a package for, 3 months or 6 months. They go, really, would you do that? They're asking me if I would do that, right? And so I said, yeah, put the package together. They come in with their credit card or checkbook, here you go. And I was like, wow, that was pretty cool, to be able to do that. So just a whole paradigm shift, very easy, right? I mean, not the Herculean effort, to move the mountains behind me. That's what it felt like I had to do. Whereas now it's like, no, let's get up there and ski down, it's a piece of cake.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's interesting. One of the things that I see, especially for that people that practice like you and me for that matter, is we we try and apply like a high volume model to the way we practice because there's so many wonderful coaches out there in the high volume model, but they don't really understand what we do. They'll say things like, you saw 30 people in a day. I did that in the first half hour. What'd you do with the rest of your day? And my response is I went deeper and helped people in ways you couldn't imagine, you moron. Now, I'm not giving people a hard time that do high volume. I've done it and I love it and I know the amazing results you can get. But don't kid yourself that people that are doing practice the way you practice aren't doing amazing work, aren't going deep. So, what I see is that we have these contradictions. Yes, I'm doing 95% of what you recommend. It just doesn't feel right. It's not my model. It doesn't feel right for me. And therefore, not only does it not work, it goes down. Or I can get it to go up, but then I crash. Versus when
Yes.
my main focus is to draw the best out of you. I'm really good at that, of drawing the best out of you. You'll never be as good at me being me as I am, and vice versa. And that's one of the things that you've been so great at is you're just getting more and more clear about your truths and how you want to practice, right? It's certainly not you're not a mini me in any way, but every step of the way when you do that, you see these massive changes like all of a sudden, I one of the things I love is you send me emails when you're having these great successes. They're so fun for me to read, and on a regular basis, I'm getting these emails from you right at the beginning where you're saying, "Oh, this is just amazing." Like I didn't tell her anything. I asked her, "How long do you think it would take?" And she goes, "I think it would take 6 months." Well, if you'd like, I can come over the program. Oh, I would like you to do that. Would you do that for me? Which is so different than that pressure model of you have to do this. If you don't do this, you and your next 7 generations are going to die of subluxations, blah, blah, blah. But you've really done it your way every step of the way, which is my experience of why it works. Because you've taken the time to dive in and make it yours versus trying to just do what I say and do mine. Thoughts?
Yeah. 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 It's interesting because I've been doing a program with Tony Robbins and Dean Graciosi, creating an online program of 6 biohacking secrets to feel younger and have more energy, which is a culmination of all the work that I've been doing. But a paradigm shift that I experienced with Dean, where he was talking about selling. A lot of people think of the used car salesman, salesy type of thing, where, oh, you got to go make the sale. And his concept of sales is that we have a moral obligation. If we have a service and product of value, and if we can help someone, we have a moral obligation to quote unquote sell them that to improve their quality of life. And I think in the bigger picture of things, I call the work that I do actually brain-based bioenergetic chiropractic. Bioenergetic is just life energy. And so, to raise their life energy, their frequency, especially in the world these days, the shift is happening. And as we can raise the life frequency and the energy of this planet, we make this world a better place of what's going on. So there's this different perspective as far as what is sales. And it's so nice and refreshing to go into the office. And it's after all these years to have this change of when I step in the door of my office, I'm in the zone. I just now it's there where I'm, like you said, my truth that I'm working with is just right there. It is really clear. And I can set boundaries, and I've been setting boundaries with people with which can be pretty challenging. I mean, I had a lady, 20 years I've been working with, and I was like, you know what? You're not following along with my and it's just not effective. It's not fun for me, and I'm not helping you the way I'd like to. No more. And it created a situation of communication where I could apply what I've been learning from you in this concept of sales. And she's like, okay, all right, I get it. But it took that kind of abrupt pattern interruption with her
Absolutely.
to, for her to get that message. And I just touched on, I've evolved or I've changed, and I call the work that I do brain-based bioenergetic chiropractic, which, I can go into what that means, but the way that I got it, again, being here in Aspen, we have a gondola that goes from the bottom of the mountain to the top. It takes 13 minutes to do. You get in the gondola and people say, oh, what do you do? I say, well, if before I would say, oh, I'm a chiropractor. And you say, oh boy, I'm sure glad I don't need you. And you go, no, no, but you do. So I was like, okay, how do I, how can I change that? And so I started saying, life energy, I increase people's frequency. I'm a bioenergetic chiropractor. And they go, gee, that's interesting. I've never heard of that. What is that? Boom. They were a captive audience for 13 minutes. And
Right.
then when I met Patrick Porter with the brain base, I always thought that, gee, the message from above down, if we wanted to open those channels, but what if the message, the source of the message was distorted or out of balance or, toxic? We need to get that straight. So I added brain-based bioenergetics. So I just go in to say that because, again, it's a type of marketing to get people curious for them to ask, wow, what is it that you do, as opposed to saying, oh, you're a chiropractor, because they're all pain based. Oh, I'm sure glad I don't need you. And for me, it again took me to another level, breaking outside of that mold and go, yeah, this is what I do in the bigger picture of things.
Absolutely. And I call it a seahorse versus a sawhorse. They sound a lot alike, but they're really, really different. The pain-based chiropractic from a Seinfeld episode, not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's not what I do. It's not my passion, my zone of genius. I'm people who want to help people get healthy and stay healthy for a lifetime. Um, but I want to comment on what Dean Graziosi said. I've not heard that from him, but I would agree 100%. Not only is it a moral obligation, but I believe that it's malpractice not to. And what I mean by that is this. I always talk about you got to find out what they want in relationship to what you can do for them and show them how to have it. If they just want to feel better, far out. I may do that for them and I may not. If they want to get healthy and stay healthy, far out. That's what I do. But it's my job to help them understand the difference between just feeling better and functioning at their optimum, between just feeling better and actually being healthy. That's my job. And if I don't do that, in my world, that's malpractice. It's their job to choose what they want. If they want that, far out. If they want that, far out. So these are where these contradictions come in that we don't know how to do it. We don't know how to help people understand this. We've tried just telling them and lecturing them and all that kind of stuff. It just doesn't work. So I would agree 100% with that, that it's a moral obligation once we find out what they actually want. And in no way am I giving Dean a hard time for using that term. But to me, the energy of this is a moral obligation is something that I have to do. I have to tell them something, even if it's not something they want. In this version, it's find out what they want and just show them how to have it because it's a lot easier to give people something they want versus trying to sell people something they don't want. And that's something you're really great at. It's just finding out what they want and then just giving them what they want and not giving them a hard time either way. And in
Right.
doing so, I've seen your practice really grow.
Right. And I think though that, you and Dean are both talking the same thing because it just changes our perspective on selling our products and services. He has very similar approaches and techniques about asking the people what they want, and helping what I have to offer, helping them get that. So it's not, that old sales thing. It's a very congruent and very similar approach that you use. And
Yeah,
I feel very blessed and fortunate to have the two of you guys reinforcing and amplifying, this whole concept, but that path to health and wellness that you were just showing there is such an incredible tool because it's so much fun. First of all, it's so easy to do. I mean, it's just right there. All you got to ask a few questions. What do you want? How long you think it'll take you to get there? Do you want me to help you? I mean, that's basically what it comes down to. But it's so amazing because you can go back, I have that right in front of the treatment table that I'm working with. And as you go through that, every time you can see the light change, their eyes go, oh,
got it.
oh, oh. And so they keep getting that more and more. And it's just really a lot of fun to do. So I just turn around and go, yeah, this poster here, where are you today? What's going on? Where's your fire alarm today?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's great stuff. It's fun.
Beauty. All
It's
right, here's the
fun.
deal. We're coming to the end of our lollipop right here, and I'll bet we talk again because there's so much more that you and I could dive into and that I know would help other chiropractors out there and natural healthcare providers for that matter. Any other thoughts before we head out that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I think I would like to share my experience of why I got started working with you. Again, the situation, I think there was a Zoom or a video, hey, give me a call for a consultation, you know, OHS, OHC, all those different things going on. And at my point in my career, I was like, I'm just going to kind of ride it out. I'm going to ride into the sunset here, keep doing what I'm doing and so forth. And so I was not looking at getting on with the consultant part because of my experiences with consultants in the past. I never felt that they delivered. I never felt that they really understood the work that I was doing. And so when we had the conversation, first of all, I think that I just was, the connection. Sometimes, if you're thinking of purchasing something, you get maybe think about it, are you the logical approach or your emotional base? But I think really it's what are you connected with your true self and what's going on? And what's my mission? What's my path? What's my purpose that I'm working with, right? And I think we resonated again from an energetic standpoint. And it's just such a wonderfully pure frequency to work with that even though there seemed to be an investment, and like I have, some friends who have started working with you maybe once a month or something like that. But I was like, you know what? At this point in my career, if I'm going to do it, I'm not kidding around. I mean, I'm gonna go for it. There's no patsing. I've certainly learned that over the years of, you get out what you put into it. And so I wanted to put into it and just get it and get going. And I've got to say, like, after all the different consultants, you stand out. Again, congratulations on your top 20, and there's a reason for that. But, it has been so exciting to get the results. It has been so much fun to take so much of the stress off. It's been so much fun to be making the money and moving up to the realms where I think I should be making the money as opposed to where I have been. Okay, yeah, I made it through and different things, but it's just such a refreshing, but I think reaffirming that for 41 years I've known it. Oh, I've got to watch out here. For 41 years I've been on this mission. And now to really see the light and see what I've believed in that I believed in myself and in my profession and in my purpose. It's the dream coming true.
Yeah. It's
And it's an amazing experience. And so I think for people who are out there who are not working with you or who are working with you, I think to really, do that, look in the mirror and really be honest and true and go, what do you really want? What's really important for you? And what can we do in the world now, to see where chiropractors are, leading this new health revolution. We never really, I mean, we believe, but it was like, when is it going to happen? Well, it's happening now. And again, for us to be associated with one of the great leaders in our field, you, is, the timing is finally, it's all coming together for me, but for our profession and everything else. And it's just, I mean, what else do you have? I mean, what's the story about, ships are, built to sail in the oceans, not stay in the harbors, or if you can't get to second base unless you leave first base, or everything we want is outside of our comfort zone. Well, there's still the juice, when people are thinking of retiring and, doing what, not really have anything to wake up for. Wow, to have the excitement of a mission and a passion and something to learn every day, is whether it be about our practice or our work that we do or ourselves. It is just exhilarating. And living out here in these mountains, I mean, certainly had the adrenaline rushes and the exhilarations, but I mean, like this past summer, the exhilaration I've had of working in my practice and working in my skills and so forth have really just been at a whole nother level, that I just hope people take that shot and take that chance and believe in themselves and try it and give it a shot. For, it's going to take a few months to really implement, but it's an exciting time and opportunity to do. And I thank you so much for meeting and yeah, it's great.
Thank you, brother. You all get to get a glimpse of why I love this guy so much. To me, it's just these, you know, I see guys like Dr. Tom. We've been at it for 40 years now. Um, you get emotional thinking about it. So do I. It's it's a lifetime of banging this drum. It's a lifetime. The young folks out there, you don't get what we've been through, and we certainly stand on the shoulders of the giants before us, that we don't get what they did. They're spending time in jail, but we're here. Like every decade we hear it's best time ever, it's the best time ever. Dude, it's the best time ever. We've got the Maha movement. We've got more people right now looking for what we do than ever before. All we have to do is step up and show them that we have the answers. And we can cause a paradigm shift worldwide. We can cause a paradigm shift in the health of the planet. All we have to do is get congruent, step up, and do it. I see people all the time that will say to me, I'm either going to quit, retire, do something else, or I'm contemplating possibly working with you. And my response always is, have you ever had the level of success you'd hope for? And the answer is usually no, or a long time ago, but it's been a long time. And my response is always, why don't we just get you as successful as you would like to have been, and then see what you'd like to do. Let's get you super successful and see where your passion meter is. And then you can go, you know what? I did it. Far out. I'm done. Or, wow, this is great. Like I got another 20 or 30 years in me. I think I'm going to do this. This is fantastic. And it's why I love working with guys like Dr. Tom. So thank you, brother. Thank you for all you do. You always inspire me. You always inspire me. And for those of you who are listening, I hope you found value out of this. It might be worth watching a couple of times because there were some pearls from from this character right here. Good news?
Great news. Love you. Thank you. And thanks for everybody else there.
Yeah, love you, brother. As always, much love and aloha. Bye, gang.